So welcome back to the Tone Zone. We decided to do a video today to kind of catch up on what's been going on. We had planned on having some videos come out before now, but we've run into some issues, which we're going to discuss during the video, specifically some health issues on my part, but we'll get to that. But yeah, we had planned to have more content for you by now, so we figured we'd do this to kind of bridge the gap until we can get something out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the next thing we were going to do was we were going to do a video about my rig and a video about your build.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. I guess, we're going to talk about your analog setup and maybe some of the reasons why, you went that direction, why you chose to make it all analog, these types of things, and then just go through the whole rig.
Well, you can see behind me, it's not all analog because I did get an aux box recently, but we'll discuss that at another time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'd had the big rack rigs and hybrid rigs between the two and all kinds of stuff. I even tried modeling stuff.
Yeah.
And
we both went down that rabbit hole, right?
And that I probably won't do that again. But and we're going to talk about the surgeries I've had and all this stuff, but some of it was just, I want to play. Right. And I wanted to make it simplified and see what I could do. Cause I hadn't for years, in fact, I don't know if I ever have, other than when I was a kid, had a rig that was pedals into a clean amp. I mean, honestly, I had a Yamaha, one of those solid state Yamaha heads that they had out, in the 80s or something? Those kind of brownish, goldish looking things. They actually sounded really good for solid state. And a high watt 412 cabinet that I got at Don Grubbs. And I ran some pedals into that. I had like a distortion pedal or something. I think at least one of them was an Arion pedal, which it unfortunately was not the chorus that everybody seeks out now. But I don't think I've done that for years, so I decided I'd do it. And I'd helped out a couple guys in Kip's band and stuff with pedal boards going into an amp, and thought, this doesn't sound too bad. So I just decided that if I was going to do that, I was going to avoid digital converters and stuff.
Yeah.
So hard to find digital pedals that sound good without using them with a mixer. And then that starts to complicate the entire pedal board. Mm-hmm. And I mean, a lot of people look at my pedal board now, which I'll try to insert a picture when we edit this, and see that as complicated because, everybody's, at a different level as far as what they've done or tried to do as far as rigs. To me, it's very simple.
True. And I, when you said that or made that statement, I think it's worth noting. I immediately thought of the TC Electronics line because
that's analog drive.
That's one of the few pedals that actually has, an analog dry path that allows you to really use a digital effects pedal, but still maintain an integrity to your signal without having to employ the mixers and that kind of thing.
And by the way, after
the Hall of Fame is just a great sound, and
if I wanted a digital reverb pedal, that'd be what I'd go get.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. I toyed with some. Getting to this point, I toyed with some multi-effect type stuff, or getting one of the little Line 6 pedals or an H9 or something like that as a Swiss Army knife. But I just felt like whenever I put something digital on the board, it took away from the sound. So I just decided to go all analog. Don't think I've even ever had an analog delay. And so, if I played live, I just use the reverb on the Supro, but for recording, I'm going through the aux and I'm getting the verb from that or from the DAW. So, but I'm still using my analog delays from the board. True. So, but I don't want to get too deep into it before we do the video, and we are going to do that. We've got just to let you know, we've done a backing track that I'm going to play over for a little bit, demo some of the sounds, talk about what each pedal does and all that, and just kind of break the rig down to what I'm doing with it. Not that it's rocket science or anything all that special, but just kind of come to it from, where I'm coming from with it. I did limit, what I could do.
Mhm.
I don't have pitch shift or anything like that, but I can get a lot of good sounds, and I'm real pleased with it. I mean, it's been working great. And by the way, I fixed the tuner
Oh, did
that I
you?
was telling
Okay.
you about. It's just some deoxit. That's all
Ah,
it was.
that stuff is magic,
Isn't that
man.
something? It's just been sitting in the studio and it happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is say I
You
mean,
got to have deoxit, man. That's something that every
oh,
musician
man,
should have.
yeah. And I'm running a humidifier in my studio, so I think all this gear is sitting here being exposed to some
Moisture.
humidity.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, but I've got several cans of different types of deoxit,
Yeah.
sitting on my bench. But um, and I guess uh, that's some of what's been going on.
Yeah. I
Obviously,
had a memory card reader that was not working, and all it took was some deoxit.
wow,
I love
isn't
that
that crazy?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff, man. Yeah,
So,
it's like pixie dust, right?
yeah. So the next video we were going to do was going to be about, following up on your rig. So where do we
Uh,
stand with that? I know that you ordered some parts and some tools and things to gear up your workbench for doing that.
yeah, you know, I think I've just gotten some some more helping hands and soldering vices and stuff. Um, I even kind of set up a makeshift board. I've got like a mat and stuff because as you and I both know, and I don't know how much in the detail we'll get with some of this stuff, but um, I obviously employ some mods to some of the gear
Right.
at the circuit board level. So I've got a mat, anti-static mat and stuff in. Uh, and it's a real cool little mat that, has the strap on it and all of that. So that when I do the stuff on the board, um, so just a
Well,
few little things.
that one switcher you've got for pedals and stuff,
The
you've got
GCX,
you've got like some modifications in that using evidence audio cable, don't you?
yeah, I
Because
do.
I did that too
Yeah,
back in the day.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I had it set up at one point where I separated a couple of loops, and that was wasn't it Lonnie Totman that turned us on to that?
Yep.
Yeah. So I actually because I used it for I had a couple of loops I was using when I was using the 3 Plus in that rack system. I had a couple of loops up front that I was using for line level, like the 2 loops on the CAD
Right.
compressor, and then the other 6 loops. I had them separated, and then I also like I go through gear and shore up the grounds because the gear sounds a lot more solid, which is again something else Lonnie Topman
Right.
turned me on to, which definitely you can hear the difference.
Power
And
and
then,
ground.
oh man,
Yeah.
people don't realize
People
how
don't think
huge
about
those
that at
things.
all.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
what
those
was it
things are
that,
huge.
wasn't it recently I was having a problem and everything sounded thin? And it
Yeah,
turned out to be because I was plugged into a power strip that was plugged into a power strip that
yeah,
was plugged into a power strip, basically. Because, and it's a long story, but in my studio out here, and I've got somebody that's supposed to be coming out soon to try to do it. But when we originally set this up, the electrician said he could only give me new outlets because I wanted separate circuits, 2 separate circuits out here, 20 amp. He could only put them on one side of the room. So I've had to run cable across the room, and what you do is you're not even thinking about what you're plugging it into anymore, and it's just all chained together. It was one particular Belkin power strip.
isn't
So
that
what I
it?
did is I've got a long custom power cord I had made for a rig once before. You probably
Uh,
remember that. Has the
yeah.
hospital grade connectors on it and everything.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I ran
My
that
my
cord
gauge is
directly from the 20 amp outlet
right.
around the room to the amp,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the amp's on the opposite side of the room, and instantly it was better.
yeah.
And that was happening, like it felt like every couple of times I'd turn it on, I'd experience that, and I was like, this sounds really thin. And
Yeah.
it's probably depending on power load and all kinds of factors
Yep.
on
Time of
that
day.
particular day. And I had swapped out that particular power strip a while back so that I could use the power strip that I was using back there for my work computer with the COVID thing going on and working from home
Yeah.
because I needed more outlets.
Yep.
So it was just a unconscious thing, and boom, I'm like, what's wrong with my amp? Do I need new tubes? I mean, I've got them in a shopping cart waiting to order them,
Yeah.
thinking I need them, and it wasn't the tubes.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So, my process has been slower than what I planned, obviously. But, I did order a few more things in terms of getting the bench full on ready to roll in terms of soldering, just to facilitate the quickest and smoothest workflow possible once I start.
Well,
Uh,
one of the things that we were just talking about before this call was, you know, how something that's kind of unique with us, I hope, is that both of us work full-time jobs. Music is not our full-time job, even though it's probably the main thing in our heart.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
short of God. So we don't have all day to be working on something and to set up to do this. So a lot of the planning that you're doing there is having learned in the past how you go and I'm going to work on this Saturday. I'm off, and then you spend 3/4 of the day just getting set up to do it, and you never get anything done.
right,
So pre-planning ahead of time, having a flow chart, having an idea of what's the first thing you need to do, and all of that is really imperative for us, because if you don't plan, it's not like we've got all day.
yeah, yeah. No question about it. And that's the kind of stuff I've been doing, getting the bench full on ready to roll, getting all sorts of supplies in. So I've got a drawer full of Neutrik ends and, all different types, TRS, XLR, tip sleeve,
And what
uh,
what kind of ends were those?
Neutrik.
Neutrik. So there's nothing. There's no other kinds of ends that you.
uh, Not for audio. They're they're all Neutrik, brother. And that, I feel like I want to turn this thing around and shit. I've got a slew of evidence audio cable, a bunch of cables already made up on the wall, but I've got a lot of cable to make.
Are
So
you
I've
gonna
got
are
some,
you gonna use the full out evidence audio, or are you gonna use some of the smaller cable for your pedal drawers and stuff?
I have quite a few feet of Lyric HG that like all the rack line level stuff is gonna all be Lyric HG or Lyric, you know, and I think when I get to the pedal tray, I'm gonna I'll look at that. That's the place where I may look at some of the other
Well, and that's
cables.
that's I'm sitting here thinking, and I don't want to get too deep into this as we discussed earlier, but
Mhm.
I said that, and then I thought, well, it's not really designed to be moved.
No, but I do want the flexibility if for some reason, I need to do a session or potentially if it's a big enough live date that warrants some of that. Um, I'm gonna have to see. I'm sort of in uncharted waters here with some of it because even the way that I'm thinking about, and I'm in the process of making this flow chart and looking at I'm looking at all the MIDI channels that'll be incorporated, the program changes, the, all of that, control switches on the MIDI boards and chaining, two, ground control pros together.
Oh, by
Uh,
the way, I was searching for something out in the garage the other day, and I have a bunch of MIDI ends. So if you find you need any, let me know, because I
okay.
doubt I'm going to use them for anything.
Okay. All right. Well, I know I have quite a few here, but I don't know how many. I'll have to revisit that. But But yeah, in looking at the flow chart, and you got to plan all that stuff out rather, before you start wiring things up.
Yep.
So really, I've been just looking at that, looking at how things will what my signal flow will look like. Um, and when I say in uncharted territories, because I'm looking at incorporating the ox in as one of the ways of feeding things. So that's going to be a different type of ball game that I'll have to figure that out.
Right.
What I've done before is kind of do the a la Mike Landau thing, with the what is it, the Aphex,
Yeah.
what is
Mike
that?
Pre.
107. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Aphex 107 Mike Pre. And we've used the Palmer line out to feed,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
through the 107, and then feed off. And see, in my case, that will feed into the switchblade GL, which then breaks everything out and feeds all the individual rack
Right.
gear, and I can do whatever signal
Did
path.
you see somebody on the board the other day was talking about he got rid of the sound sculpture because he had headroom problems?
No, I hadn't seen that.
I resisted the urge to ask because the post was actually about something else.
Oh,
So I
okay.
didn't want to hijack his post. If he was
Oh, okay.
asking about it, I would have offered, some insight, but it's like, I've never experienced a headroom problem with a sound sculpture.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm
That's
not either. That's
kind of weird. But anyway, we probably shouldn't get too deep into this.
no, absolutely not. Uh, but there'll be lots more to come on that stuff.
Yeah.
So as we I
As
guess
just that little discussion kind of opens the door to just how much is going on.
yeah, lots.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, we probably then should let's talk about what's going on with you in terms of, well, obviously with everything that's going on and some of this COVID stuff and all of that, that's and then some organizational planning and
Yeah.
whatnot in terms of my rig has been part of the whole
Well,
up.
even getting the camera and all that stuff, to
Oh yeah.
eventually do the stuff over here and all, and lighting, and as you can clearly see from my video, I don't have lighting worked out. But anyway,
you know,
yeah,
I probably, as we talked about, I have some of it just because I'm in the photography as well.
right.
But so yeah, we should talk about what has been on your end, what some of the holdup has been, which, I mean, it's pretty massive, but
Yeah.
we're going to talk about it because I think it could be helpful. I'm sure you're not the only one that's dealt with some of these types of issues. So hopefully it could be something that maybe helps somebody else, at maybe an earlier stage in the process or what have you.
Yeah,
So,
somebody asked me about that the other day. Do professional guitar players have this problem? And first I was insulted because I thought I was a professional guitar player, but no, um, not just kidding. But I remember Robin Ford had carpal problems,
yeah.
wearing special wrist braces and all that stuff. I don't think he had to have surgery, but that leads us to this. I mean, you've kind of got the list in front of you too. Just this hand, the fretting hand,
Mm-hmm.
I've had 5 separate procedures plus a shot. Or no, 6 separate procedures. And that includes the shot. So carpal tunnel, I had severe carpal tunnel in this hand, and we were just talking about it before we started this, that I first started experiencing the problem. My wrist would get hot when I was playing with Trademark.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, early on in it, we'd do old time rock and roll, and that's the old rock and roll thing. And doing
Mm-hmm.
that stretch, which I don't have the largest hands in the world anyway, I would have to stop doing the pinky part for periods of time, and this was in the 90s. So this should be a story to people that are experiencing this and are younger than we are. Go get it checked out, because it could be something a lot more serious. So, I probably waited too long on a lot of this stuff, but I had carpal tunnel surgery. I had tennis elbow. So there were two tendons that had to be repaired. I
Mm-hmm.
had bone spurs in the elbow that had to be cut off. I had trigger thumb, and that was a procedure, not a shot. And I had bone spurs in the thumb, and they also gave me a shot because I was experiencing other issues. That was surgery number one. Okay. So they
Mm-hmm.
did all of that in one surgery. So
Wow.
then they had to come back, and I had de Quervain's, which is a condition that affects the tendons in the thumb side of the wrist. So it's like over here. This is where the incision was.
Okay.
So I remember talking to Dr. Glowacki, who's fantastic. Him and his nurse practitioner, Berkeley, they're just wonderful. It's like family now when I walk in there. I love those guys. I really did a good job picking the right doctor.
That's a good
Really
thing.
did. And
Mhm.
that's not easy. Um,
No,
I
it's not.
went back in there and he said, well, we're going to have to do surgery on that. And I was like, I mean, why couldn't we have done that the first time? He goes, Greg, we did 5 procedures on you in the first surgery. I mean, it's like, so
That-
that was the last time I said that. But
yeah.
so then I had to have the de Quervain's. So the first surgery, that was probably the worst because they did the nerve kill. So for almost 3 days, I couldn't even tell I had an arm. Couldn't feel anything. So what,
Wow.
it was like 6 weeks or something before I was in therapy and doing the physical therapy and stuff. But it required very little for all of that work I had done. I had to do very little therapy. And, my son worked up there for a brief period as a therapy tech. And one thing that he said to me, not to say anything about any other doctors, but he said, every one of Glowacki's patients that had carpal came in and had needed little or no therapy and was in good shape right after the surgery.
Yeah. I
So
say that guy
it just
knows
kind
what.
of reinforced what I thought. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so then I had to have de Quervain's on the second surgery. So more time, more therapy. That took a little longer to heal, actually.
Mm.
Um, then I had to have a surgery on the right hand carpal tunnel. That wasn't as severe, but it had gotten to
Mm-hmm.
the point where strumming and stuff would hurt, or my wrist was very weak.
Mm-hmm.
I still do this somewhat, and as I go through some of the new stuff that's going on, we'll understand even more. But I drop things, like I go to grip something, and it's like it doesn't grip right, and I drop things. Crystal
Mm-hmm.
makes fun of me because I do that, like I'm clumsy, but it's because it's just the grip isn't there.
Right.
It's or the hand's not moving the way you expect.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably did a lot of stupid things growing up that I shouldn't have done. You know, you don't think about it now, but you go to, I worked construction and I worked landscaping, and you go to shovel something, hit a rock, and that vibration goes up your arm. You don't know what damage you're doing. I broke this wrist once, but had the carpal on this one, and I had a shot in this finger for trigger finger,
Mm.
which did not fix it. It's still there. But Glowacki was showing me that he's got it too, and he's doing surgeries. So as long as it's not hurting, you know,
Wow.
yeah. So it's not that uncommon a thing. My mom had trigger finger, so it might be something. I don't know if it comes in the DNA or
Yeah.
if you're predisposed to it or what.
Right.
So recently, I was having pain here on the right wrist,
Mm-hmm.
and I was out helping my son on his car and felt something pop over there. And this is the wrist that I broke that time, falling back and just, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I just got the MRI results. I went to the doctor. I had to get, oh, that was the other thing. And we didn't put this on the list. I have arthritis, severe arthritis in this left thumb.
Mm.
So what prompted me to go back to the doctor, and what's held up us doing this video, because I did the backing track for me to play over and everything, but this thumb started hurting, and I've been getting injections in it. Basically, it's bone on bone arthritis here. I have no cartilage left.
Mm-hmm.
And as anybody that plays guitar knows, you basically use that thumb as a fulcrum, and when you're playing lead, you're bending and everything. So once that starts really acting up, it's pretty hard for me to play.
Mm-hmm.
So it had been about when it goes away, that shot goes away, it's like somebody flipped a switch.
Mm-hmm.
So I got another shot in it, and we're planning on surgery sometime after August, because Crystal and I are planning to do a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's going to be more serious. They have to take a bone out, the smallest little bone there at your thumb in your wrist, and they replace it with tendon that almost looks like a slinky, the way
Mm-hmm.
they put it in there. So in other words, that's kind of replacing where you would have had cartilage.
Mm-hmm.
And this one worries me the most, but at the same time, when you got bone on bone arthritis, I mean, the first time they gave me the shot, it lasted like, 4 months. The next time it was 3 months. This last time it was 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see what's happening. Eventually, it's just not going to work.
Right.
So I really don't have a whole lot of choice. But when I went back, I also had them look at the pain I was having here, which is not really affecting my playing, but it's not, it hurts all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out I have a TFCC tear, which you'll have to look that up. I'm not a doctor, and I haven't seen him yet. I've just received the results in the app that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll have an appointment to explain it to me, and a ganglion cyst.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the best I can understand it, a ganglion cyst occurs because of a buildup of fluid, because of inflammation and an underlying issue, which would, the tear would explain that. My
Mm-hmm.
guess, without him telling me, is that I probably had a partial tear here, and when I did whatever I did that day, I completed it, because it says it's a perforated complete tear.
Mm.
So basically, what it amounts to, my uh, dad's wife said the other day, from my elbow down, I'm a mess. You know, I've got arthritis, I've got tendonitis, I've had all these surgeries. I'm blessed to be able to play.
Yeah.
And I can go back and look. There's a video that I have. It's like the first one ever put on YouTube. It was me with Trademark at Dogwood Dell. And I watched that. And not that I'm Steve Lukather or, whatever. But I watched that, and I am rolling up and down the fretboard, and I cannot play that way now.
Yeah.
I've had to change the way I play. I can still play some fast licks and stuff, but it doesn't flow like it did before. And it's never going to. I'm never going to play the same way I did 20 years ago. And that's probably true for everybody, but it's more so for me with all the, physical ailments that
Yeah.
affect
I
my
mean,
playing.
yeah. I think about working on this album, man. There are days where I struggle to play some of the stuff I used to play. Like maybe I've gotten the track to the point where I'm working on the solo section or something, and I'm just struggling. Like my hand is just bothering me a little bit or what have you.
Right.
So it's I think as we get a little older, it's harder to, the body doesn't always respond the way we'd like.
Right. But I mean, the underlying thing here is you want to be careful you find you a really good doctor. If you're in
Mm-hmm.
this area, I highly recommend Dr. Glowacki. I mean, I've really researched before I chose him.
Did you?
And when you start experiencing that stuff, and in hindsight, it's easy to say this stuff. But basically, I've discovered from what they've told me, apparently I have a pretty high tolerance for pain, because by the time I go to the doctor with this stuff, they're wondering how I'm using my hand at all or
Wow.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, or lifting my elbow or, so, I
Which
guess.
is probably not the best thing to do, to wait till that long.
No, on the other hand, though, if I had gotten the carpal tunnel taken care of surgically back when I started having the problem 20 plus years ago, they didn't have these procedures and they weren't as successful. So the
Ah,
procedure he did on me is one that he specializes in, and there's different ways of doing it, and this is the point I need it. So maybe it was God's will that I wait until I could get with this doctor and get this particular procedure. It's hard to say. So
yeah,
I don't want to look back and say, man, I wish I had done it different. You just go with it the best you can. I didn't know,
yeah,
and part of my thing was, well, I'm getting older. You're going to have aches and pains and stuff. You deal with it, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
one day I was talking to my dad, who's 80 years old, and he goes, "Son, when I was your age, I didn't feel like that," and it was
yeah.
eye opening because you don't have anything to gauge it by.
Well, true.
So I'm
Yeah,
I'm hitting
you've
I'm
never
hitting
been
my
at this
late
age
40s
before.
and 50s when this was really getting bad, and I'm going, I'm 50. I mean,
Yeah,
but it's not supposed. And on top of all of this, I've got a bad back,
yeah,
and they want to do fusion surgery on my back, and I'm going to avoid that at all costs. So
yeah.
I'm losing weight because I'd really put on weight, and that's the other thing that happens when you can't use your hands. You can't work around the house. You can't do anything. You become a couch potato. And
Hmm.
even if you're eating well, which I feel like I do, you still gain weight.
Yeah,
You're not doing enough. So you got
right.
a bad back, bad hands, bad elbows. Thank God my knees are okay.
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, and my mind seems to be okay. Um, some people might argue that, but uh, for everything I've got going on, I'm still very blessed to have what I have. You know,
Yeah,
and to
yeah.
still be able to play because I know that with the arthritis, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And at some point, hopefully I'm in my 80s or something, but at some point I'm not going to be able to play.
Yeah.
So, and I'm probably the perfect case scenario for this stuff. I mean, I worked on guitars, built rigs, all that takes your hands, construction, woodworking, um, landscaping. I started off as a drummer.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I do drums, some keys, some bass. I mean, everything is repetitive motion. And my main work is on computers all day
Yeah,
long, which,
yeah.
that thing that I've got now where it really hurts me is using the mouse because you rest your wrist like that. So I've ordered a gel mouse pad that I just got in today to try to help with that. But I mean, I'm literally on the computer 8, 9 hours a day minimum.
I was wondering about that myself because obviously I'm kind of a little bit in the same boat. I spend a ton of time on a computer. So, and then obviously doing woodworking, doing a little bit of woodworking, and but with music and also with photography, I spend a bunch of time on the computer editing or working on the DAW. Uh, so yeah, that's having your hands or wrists in that position for so long is not a good thing.
Well, we're going to have to cut this one off because I didn't think about the laptop being on battery, and it's dying
Ah,
on me. Since we had to kind of, just a kind of background, I was using a virtual webcam using my camera. I mean, my phone as the webcam,
huh.
and with Zoom, but Zoom's latest security update, which they force you to get, doesn't allow virtual cameras now. So I'm forced to use my work laptop here to do this Zoom meeting, and I didn't think about plugging it up because it's off of the dock. Because I have a
Ah,
setup with the dock and the two monitors and all that for work. So it just went into battery saver mode. So hopefully it's not affecting the video right now or anything. But
it doesn't
um,
appear to be. Yeah.
okay, so, but yeah, I mean, that's what we kind of wanted to go over, just kind of give you some insight into why we haven't posted more content. We fully intended to. And look, I've gotten a new camera for us to do some video with that should be a little bit better quality than using the phones. And we're learning this stuff as we go. So I'm sure it's going to get better and better as we go along. But we'll be back soon with more content. I mean, my thumb's back to normal, so I'm going to try to this week or this weekend record that intro video and stuff. But we really need to get lights to do that. Get the lights in, but record that intro video, and then we can tap on the rest of it and get that out, and then hopefully do something with your rig and stuff.
Yeah, hopefully by then I've at least gotten. I'll show the back of the rack maybe, and hopefully have power and control cables, maybe MIDI cables done. We'll see.
Yep.
How far
but like I said, behind me you can see I'm reversed. Behind me you can see my latest thing was the Ox, which Tom already has one. I let him be the guinea pig, and then I fell in love with it and had to have one. So it's his fault if my wife asks. It's Tom's fault that I had to buy an Ox.
That's a great piece of gear, man.
But I will say the amp underneath it is the amp I've probably had the longest, isn't it? I've been through some amps. We should probably do a video about that somewhere down the road.
That'll be a long video.
All right. Well, I'm going to close this thing out before my laptop dies. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch up with you soon.
See you.
Bye.